Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Million Dollar Body Podcast, the intersection of physical and financial success. I'm Nate Palmer, here today with Ben Brown. And if you're here today, it's probably because you're a high performer, an entrepreneurial dad, or a business owner that is interested in gaining an unfair advantage in life using fitness and nutrition as force multipliers. If you're not already a part of the Facebook community, definitely go to n8trainingsystems.com/group. That's where we stream these podcast episodes every Wednesday. You can join in, ask questions. There's a ton of cool stuff happening in the group, as well as a mass amount of free resources. Right now, we're giving a giveaway of the Million Dollar Body Method book. So if you're a part of the group and you have not received a copy of it, I don't have it out here just to sit on my shelf. I will literally send you a digital copy. You can read it, send it around, give it to your grandma for Christmas. I don't know, whatever you want to do with it, totally fine. But make sure you're part of the group at n8trainingsystems.com/group. Today, I have the pleasure, the honor, the audacity to interview one of my favorite people, Ben Brown. He's a nutritionist. He runs BSL Nutrition. He's got an incredible supplement line called Essentials, which are some of the best amino acids on the market. And this dude is just one of the sharpest guys I've ever met in terms of thinking about nutrition. He thinks about it in a totally different way than me, gets amazing results with his clients. But Ben, I'm so glad to have you back on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me. I always love just rapping with you, whether we're on a podcast or otherwise. So, dude, super psyched to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, talking shit is my love language. So this is the space right here. It's a safe space. Just being broadcasted live on every channel that I know how to get to. So safe space.
Hey, perfect. I mean, let's
your
share the love.
Your secrets are safe with me.
I have no secrets. Literally.
Perfect. Life's way easier without secrets. But Ben, I want to pump you up a little bit because you just finished an event here in Phoenix where you had 30 people, 40 people.
We had 75 people.
75. Okay. Way under that. So you had 750 people.
That's right.
In a room for 8 hours. You were talking all about periodization, nutrition, and how people can reach their goals. And that took I know that took a lot of planning, a lot of execution, and you absolutely crushed it, delivered a ton of value. So I just want to say, dude, amazing job. You were absolutely killing it. Thank you for representing Arizona.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. It was a great learning experience. As I said, we were talking earlier, but definitely interesting event, trying to get people into a room on a Saturday for 8+ hours to talk nutrition. You definitely got to be dedicated to that. And so we had a great group of people. It was a great experience all the way around, and really just good community building. I think at the end of the day, we're so lost in this virtual world that sometimes we lose the significance of having the opportunity just to get together face to face to support each other, especially in a like-minded environment where we all want to talk shop, learn nutrition, get healthier, grow together, support each other. And so from that standpoint, it really was really rewarding. So I appreciate that. And you'll have to be at the next one, probably even speak at the next one, perhaps.
Ooh, that would be excellent. I love that though, because I think that that's one thing that CrossFit has always done really well is build the community. Mm-hmm. So whether you agree with their training methodologies or not, I think they do community almost better than any other entity in the fitness space. So for you to be able to kind of carve that out and create that without the CrossFit affiliate or whatever, and start creating your own BSL nutrition community, that's an incredible job.
Well, it's a necessity, right? It's I've been coaching for a long time, and it's always been the missing piece. I've been online for a long time, and just getting feedback from clients is there's only so much that we can do as a coach. And I think that having clients, giving clients the opportunity for them to interact with each other, to hear what each other's struggling about, it's Nate, it's dude, you're a fit dude that's coaching, a stay-at-home mom of 3 is you can tell her everything that she's supposed to be doing, but at the end of the day, she may not really resonate with you whatsoever. But you have another client who's in the same situation, who's getting great results, and the two speak to each other, and it just kind of clicks, right? And so I think it's imperative that we give our clients the opportunity to connect with each other, to support each other, so that they can really feel they're understood, so that people empathize with them. I can't empathize with a perimenopausal woman. I just can't. Like, I hear you, I hear the struggles that you're dealing with, but it just doesn't really resonate with me, and vice versa. And so for a long time, we've been talking about what would it look like for us to have the opportunity to bring our clients together to help establish and give them more information about the foundation of why we do what we do in our coaching program. And then, of course, to include the community so that we can all engage together. So we can truly kind of create a bigger mission, a bigger purpose together. And then, of course, like, look, at the end of the day, I think we all understand, or hopefully we should understand, the value of community and connection as it pertains to health and wellness, which is something that's vastly missing. And certainly we can kind of see what's happened over the past 20 months of people being in isolation. And it's significantly contributed to a lack thereof of health. And so we want to counter that.
Because there's definitely been a lack of community, kind of just not going out as much, staying at home, more work from home, more Zoom meetings. So and then we've seen the combination of like the communities dropping, like the face-to-face interactions dropping, as well as general health, right? The COVID-19 is like a thing that I'm hearing about more and more from clients and people in the $1 Million Body community. So yeah, two quotes come to mind when you're talking though. Is one is that a rising tide lifts all ships. Mm-hmm. So when you're bringing people together, and like you said, you have two people who are completely like in the same situation and maybe a disparate situation from where you're at, but they're connecting. Totally. That can be more transformative than you, the expert, being like, no, Mrs. Jones, you just need to do X, Y, and Z. You're just hearing it from someone else. The second quote that I think of a lot is a lot of our behaviors it's not because we learned something new, it's because we remembered something true. And I feel like a lot of times having that community, having like the peer group talk is a great way to remind yourself of something true, rather than having to like go out and learn something from your coach, a YouTube video, a blog, or an article. So yeah, awesome job on that.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's it though. It's not like they need more information. It's not like that, the intention wasn't for them to come into the room and me just to flood them with all of this, like, you need to do this, that, and the other, and let's talk calories, and let's talk macros, and let's talk, strategy and all that stuff. It's really like, let's take the stuff that we already know. Let's take kind of the impetus for like, why do you even want to change in the first place? And let's get clarity on why, what does that change actually look like? How do we measure that change? What are the benefits versus the costs associated? And then let's, plug in the actual application of how can we help you implement the change that you're trying to make with some of the bigger driver tools. Again, we're not giving you all of this useless information, but instead saying, hey, how can we kind of educate you a little better, and give you the tools to be able to apply all of that stuff in a really realistic way for you that sort of separates itself from a lot of the things that people struggle with, which usually revolves around, fad dieting methodology, overly restrictive dieting, and all of that kind of stuff, which clearly is not working well in the long term. And so that's kind of our mission, is just kind of changing people's belief system around what it means to be healthy, just starting to look at things differently, to give people the permission to think about their weight, think about their goals, think about their plan of attack in a different way, so that they can feel like they have more flexibility and more freedom to do what they want within the context of still being able to reach their goals.
So it's almost like you're giving people perspective and context rather than information, which I love, because if you Google health and fitness routine, which I did like recently, you get 239 million results off Google. So like you said, we don't need more information. There's more information. We were inundated with it all the time. If you wanted to learn how to extract a crocodile tooth and put it onto a necklace, there's like a YouTube video for that. Like, information is free. So when you're talking about like giving people the permission basically to think about their health and fitness in a different light that maybe they haven't before, I think that's actually really, really powerful, rather than just, like you said, flooding people with information, which is always my proclivity.
Yeah. I mean, it's the intersection between, health information and lifestyle and application, really. And it's saying, look, we are all in different spaces. Like, look, we're all biochemically individual. We all have different lifestyles. We all have different responsibilities. We all have different perceived stressors, and goals. And so saying, hey, within the context of where you are, right? And we all have different commitment levels. We all have different, kind of readiness for change. We all have different education. So within all of that, so many moving pieces at any given time, but we try and apply these diets in some linear fashion, this myopically focused, like this is all you need to do. Just eat the green foods, avoid the red foods, do this for exercise. Don't eat at these times, only eat at these times. Like, it's not that there's anything wrong with that per se, but you're not factoring in the nuanced sort of undulating nature of how adaptable and dynamic human beings are, and the necessity for them to be as such. And so is our environment, is always moving and changing and evolving. And so people need the tools to be able to kind of find where they fit within that, evolution, so to speak, and then be able to apply the information in a way that works for them based on their goals. And that's sort of our objective, is to kind of say, okay, well, we need to have we need to have kind of data, right? We need to understand like where you are right now, both from a objective and subjective standpoint. Like, some of the fundamentals, Nate, right? Is like, dude, like we need to understand how many calories you're consuming. We need to understand what and how much type of movement you're doing. Would probably be a good idea to pay attention to how you're sleeping and what your energies look like and your digestion and kind of your hunger levels. And then of course, understanding your goals and then of course, and then looking at what your lifestyle looks like and what's even reasonable for you. And then once we have an understanding of that, then we can say, all right, well, based on all of the different things that we know do work, because there's a lot of things that work, at least for a short-term period of time, we can apply the thing that's really going to be geared towards that low-hanging fruit, right? Maybe it's just moving more. Maybe it's just drinking less alcohol. Maybe it's just eating more protein. Maybe it's just drinking more water. Maybe it's some combination of all of the above in a way that fits with that one person, but we've leveraged it in a way where it really appeals to that one person. Whereas for someone else, maybe they're well beyond that, maybe they're already doing all of those things, or someone perhaps that's so far behind on that they simply need to understand what a protein is or just how to start moving more, right? So all of those things.
So I'd love to hear a bit more from you about how you kind of like unpack and like maybe compartmentalize like the stages of nutrition, like the places that people can start, like whether it's fat loss or muscle building or metabolism or anything like that. I'd love to hear kind of your take on that. But I do want to go back to what you were saying earlier, because it sounds like what you're doing is really giving people the freedom to be critical thinkers about their own nutrition. You're going, here's all the factors. Here's some other inputs that we could potentially use. What do you think? Here's the outputs we're looking for. Here's where you're at. Which one would be better suited for you? So you're giving them the tools rather than what I think a lot of dumbass diets like keto do, where they go, you don't get it. You're too stupid to understand nutrition. Therefore, you have just eat fats and you're good to go. Butter in your coffee, that's the ticket, because you're too stupid to get it any other way. And they throw like I feel like we talk to so many people who are competent, smart, successful business owners, entrepreneurs. They're like, I'm so confused about nutrition, because there's so many like magazine covers that are being like, you think water's good for you? You asshole, don't eat water anymore. It's just all like completely water. Yeah.
I mean, but that's it. Like it's, you have to give people autonomy to make their own decisions.
I mean, right? Only if you want them to be successful long-term.
Well, that's it. Otherwise, no one's going to subscribe to the nonsense for any extended period of time. They'll be like, it's just human psychology. It's like, you're telling me not to do that? Fuck you. I'm going to do it. Like, I mean, that's literally what the brain does. It's like, oh, don't eat the chocolate. Yeah. That might last for a week, and then I'm going to eat all of the chocolate.
This feels very much like what goes through my 3-year-old's mind on a regular basis.
You're like, don't do this. And the brain's just like, do this. Yeah. I think there's something to be said for that. Yeah. So 100%, we want people to be critical thinkers. We want them to have the tools and the freedom to make their own decisions, to understand how to make the best decisions possible for them. Like, ultimately, that's our goal, right? And there's a lot of ways to do that. But one of the ways that, and kind of the way that we look at our coaching program and the way that we work with clients, is really giving them an understanding of like, hey, we really need to kind of think long-term here. And there's a lot of ways that we can approach dieting, so to speak. And obviously it's going to completely depend on your goals. There's a lot of ways we can approach body composition change, but really the way that we do it is through this sort of periodization model, right? We call it nutritional periodization. And it's very much the same as what we would do in a fitness or performance standpoint. Is like at the very highest level, we take the Olympics, right? And we've got someone who's training for a 100-meter sprint for the Olympics, and we might have a programming that's going to encompass the next 4 years of their training, right? To get them in peak physical condition for a 9 whatever second race, right? Like one race. But again, at the most extreme level, it's really the variance and sort of the manipulation of volume and intensity of their training over an extended period of time that's going to help their body adapt to those types of stimulus. Now, from a nutrition standpoint, it's saying, hey, like we have a year as an example. All of our coaching programs are a year. So say, Nate, like you say, I want to put on as much muscle mass as possible and be the leanest possible person I can be by the end of the year. Well, we got to say, all right, well, it would be illogical for us to both try and diet and gain muscle mass at the exact same time, right? For people that don't know, that doesn't work very well, because to diet, you need to be in a caloric deficit. To gain any appreciable amount of muscle mass for someone that's been training for a long time like you, we need to be in a caloric surplus, despite the fact that a lot of people try and do this and just end up spinning their wheels. Right?
I'm pretty sure there's a diet from like The Rock
Lean.
where you can do both, and but more butter in the coffee though is kind of what I'm getting at. Right?
It's more butter and it's a little more anabolic steroids too.
That'll do it.
So
does that go in the coffee also?
Yeah, of course. The other component, it's MCT. It's not butter, right?
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
That's the differentiator. Maybe it's both. The other component is like, hey man, what's actually like realistic for you? A good example is right now, Nate, is like, not only do you want to diet, not only do you want to bulk, but we're also going into the holidays. You also want a little bit of flexibility and freedom to kind of have more alcohol, eat more of the foods that you normally eat, right? Without feeling like you have to diet down and be restrictive, which may not be realistic for you. So instead of giving people all of these guidelines that are going to be frankly terribly unrealistic and or just not going to get them anywhere other than running away from your coaching program, we really want to structure this from a standpoint of saying, okay, well, what's most important for us to focus on? Now, potentially someone doesn't even have the tools or the skills to know how to eat in a meaningful way, or to be able to eat in a deficit, or to be able to eat enough protein, or to be able to how to structure their meals appropriately, or how to create consistency from day to day, right? So, so many things at play that we want to first observe and acknowledge based on where the client's coming from, again, and their goals, to the degree that we might say, hey, Nate, I think what would make a lot of sense for you right now is for us to spend the next few months really helping you develop the nutritional skills and habits that are going to be necessary for you to, one, first and foremost, lose body fat, as much body fat as possible, get as lean as possible, get as healthy as possible, right? So that when we do start bulking you up, you're in a position where we can leverage, insulin and blood sugar, right? You're all about this kind of stuff, and metabolic priming or glycogen priming. And we want to be able to, whatever sugars that we're putting in, we want to make sure those sugars are going straight to the muscles, straight to the liver in the most optimal way possible. But right now you've got a bit more body fat. You're probably not as insulin sensitive as you should be. So when we start to think about this year timeline, instead of saying, okay, we're just going to put you right into a deficit, or we're just going to put you right into a bulking phase, we'd say it would probably make more sense, one, to give you a little more flexibility and freedom over this time of year, but also to leverage that time to make sure you're developing the skills. So this might be what we call either a maintenance phase and or something we call like a metabolic priming phase, or, there's a lot of ways that you can, you can classify it. right? And then we would say, okay, once you've spent a couple months building up, then we could say either we can go into, now you're in a position where we're kind of really ready to go into a deficit. You're getting enough protein consistently. You've got some really good meal structure in place. You're drinking enough water. Your sleep's on point. You've been managing stress really well. I know you talk a lot about that, so that when we do diet down, like we've got all of our ducks in a row so that we can be the most efficient with the dieting process. And we're not wasting time like trying to find what the deficit should look like. We've already established what your maintenance is. So now we can go into a really strategic dieting phase, right? So we had sort of like a metabolic priming, or it even could be looked at as like a performance phase. Say maybe we spend the next couple of weeks just getting you more comfortable in the gym, working on setting new kind of PRs, and also working on improving nutrition. Then we can go into a dieting phase. And then we say, all right, maybe it's spring break, right? And we're going to be traveling with the kids and it's going to be hard to kind of manage things. We can go into kind of like a little maintenance phase. Or maybe we did a performance phase in Q1, right? And worked on building a little bit of lean muscle tissue. And then we can say, all right, now would be a good time to go into dieting phase for summer, right? Because we all want to look good during summer. We shred fat for 3 or 4 months. And then we can go into a maintenance phase during summer and say, hey, now we're just chilling at maintenance. You have the freedom. And I want you to really acknowledge the fact that for once in your life, you're neither trying to lose weight, nor are you necessarily trying to gain weight or bulk or whatever. Like you're okay just chilling at maintenance, right? And you're okay not trying to undereat during the week and binge eating on the weekend. But we can have some fun with it too, right? Where we might do on training days, you're eating a little bit more carbs. On non-training days, not so many carbs or calories. Or maybe you're traveling a little bit and we want a little higher on the weekends. So lots of nuance, lots of ability to modify those variables, but essentially saying, and the very basic level, Nate, we can kind of structure a year to say, hey, by the end of this year, this is what we want to have happen. And that way, strategically, we can work backwards and say, based on where you want to be and based on where you are now, here's the most logical pieces that we have in place so that we don't waste time, that we don't waste energy, you don't waste money and frustration and stress. Meanwhile, we can kind of support the body, support the metabolism, and ensure that you're getting the best results possible.
Have I been on mute this entire time?
100%.
Oh, wow.
Were you legitimately muted, or was it me?
No, it was me muted. I think my microphone's been off, which is too bad. I was saying a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, you were going there and I was watching you and you looked animated, like you had a lot of good things to say, but no one could hear you. So I'm like scrambling. I'm like, what the heck's going on?
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, because you're like, I was like, I'm gonna keep talking because it looks like you're trying to get your headphones going.
Dude,
wow, that's so embarrassing.
It happens to the best of us.
Well, all I was saying was that basically I love your strategy because it gives people the ability to be like, no, you're good. You're good. You're maintaining. You're not, you're like, don't worry about it, because we get to the end of like a fat loss phase. And I think a lot of people are like, what do I do now? Can I go back to eating normally? Or do I have to get down to like 3% body fat to be happy? And you're like, nah, you can just chill. You can kind of figure out what that balance is. If you're going to be eating,
you need to chill. Like you need to chill. And that's where I think it's so important for us to be assertive with our clientele, and that people understand you need to earn the right to diet, right? It's like for most people, they're not in a good position to jump right into a dieting phase, depending on the person. Now, of course, if it's someone that's already grossly overeating and somewhat physically inactive, it would probably do them a world of good to figure out a way to strategically drop calories. And there's a lot of good ways that we can run some, short-term aggressive sort of calorie deficits that can get the needle moving, get the ball rolling, move the needle, so on and so forth. But the point is that it's also very much okay for someone to hear that, you know what, you need to improve your skills and habits before you've earned the right to be in a dieting phase, especially if there's people that have been chronically undereating, if there's people that aren't sleeping, if there's people whose stress levels are terribly high, if they have very infrequent or poor consistency with their meals, if they're undereating protein, all of those types of things, because otherwise they're setting themselves up for disaster.
Yeah. And I think that just having like the ability to go, okay, like this is the thing I love about your program being a year long. And one of the reasons I've kind of copied you in this way is because it just gives us so much more room to breathe with these. Like I was running 3-month programs for a really long time, 3 months, 4-month programs. And it just felt like there was always this like urgency, this like, got to get like, oh, I didn't lose any weight last week. That's a failure.
Right.
And I don't know who said it, but I heard someone say one time that maintenance is progress. And I love that idea.
100%.
And I repeat it all the time. And I pretend like it's me who said it, but it wasn't.
I like that one
Yeah.
a lot.
But it's like, it's so nice to be able to be like, okay, you have a year to get here. Like, let's not only get you to your goals, but let's figure it out during this process. Let's get you your masters in your own body's nutrition and necessities.
Well, it's also understanding that there's going to be so many bumps in the road. It's just inevitable. And I would say that that's probably the biggest reason that people fall off these programs, is because these programs don't factor for life bumps. Right? It's like, hey, there's going to be a death in the family. I hope not, but there's going to be a birth. There's going to be, a fucking pandemic. There's going to be like all of
I didn't have that in my workout program. I didn't have, I wasn't
right.
set.
There's going to be all of this stuff that comes up. There's going to be the job stress, the travel, taking care of elderly parents, whatever it is.
Or just 15 holiday parties.
100%. And it's like, hey, you don't have to give up everything and have this sort of binary black or white approach to either you're all in or you're all out. And that's part of the problem. But
say it louder really, for the type A's in the back.
Seriously, but it's saying, hey man, when these things come up, now you have the tools and the freedom and the permission to be able to navigate them in a real world standpoint, as long as we're setting realistic expectations, which is important to do in the first place. And that comes down to me saying, and us just saying, Nate, you said you want to lose fat. You said you want to gain muscle. You said you want to run a marathon. You said you want to, be the healthiest version of you. You've just established 4 completely different goals that require completely different approaches to your nutrition, your training, your consistency, so on and so forth. So that's really us being like, okay, but which one do you actually want first, so that we can focus on that? And then it's saying, hey, and then as we go down this road, helping people actually get the ahas of like, I'm so glad that I don't have to feel like I have to, only stick to this food list, or so that I can eat what I want as long as I'm hitting my calorie ceiling, right? And that I can make decisions on my own, right? That autonomy, and I'm empowered to make those decisions, as opposed to feeling like I'm white knuckling and only eating from this list, and I can never have that piece of cake, which frankly, because I can't have it, it's all I want right now. And so as we're going through, then people are really starting to understand their body. They're starting to create a better relationship with food. They're giving themselves permission to be okay with actually the scale weight either staying the same, or acknowledging that they actually feel better eating more food, or experiencing the fact that just by virtue of eating better quality food, getting more protein, moving more in a meaningful way, that body composition is changing despite the fact that weight may not be changing. So many beautiful ahas that you wouldn't get otherwise, because you're so under the gun to get fast results now. And frankly, that's just not how the body works anyways. There's multiple occasions where we spend 3 or 4 weeks or more where we see that nothing's moving, and then all of a sudden something happens. But typically people aren't giving them the time to acknowledge or experience that, or leverage the data to make informed decisions, to the degree that it's okay to stay there. It's okay for that to happen. And then reaping the benefits on the other side.
trying to get that Amazon Prime result with the snail mail delivery system.
If you had an Amazon Prime result for the, nutrition and fitness, you'd be a very, very wealthy man. And I think we all market it as the Amazon Prime, but the reality is there's just there really is no prime approach.
So I got two kind of questions for you, but going back to kind of like the Amazon Prime thing, I think of like when someone's coming in for the first time, I like to give them the Amazon Prime experience, especially in the first 4 weeks. So I give them a bit more rigidity. So like, this is not obviously like works for everybody, but I feel like it's like I give them a blueprint. It's okay. You eat like this. Here's a meal plan. It's very specific. It's very like, here's your shopping list. And I only give it to them for 4 weeks because I feel like 3 to 4 weeks is kind of the maximum amount of time that someone can do a meal plan and maintain it before they go, well, because I'm never eating this again. But I also think that it like, when you go and you get really, really deep into it, what I found is that like when now in phase 2, when you take a step back, give them a little bit more perspective. It's like, here, hey, you were eating this. Here's why you were eating this. Here's the other alternatives you can switch in and out for that. And they go, oh, and they have that kind of the aha moment that you were talking about. So I like, from a philosophy perspective, I like to have an Amazon Prime couple weeks to give them give people a taste, get them like motivated. I feel like when you see the results happening, you're like, okay, I can stick with this a little bit longer. So
yeah.
But my question is when someone's coming into you for the first time, and like I get this a lot from men, especially, they go, I'm trying to build some muscle, I'm trying to burn some fat. What's your like, without knowing anything about this person, what's your normal go-to? What should people do first?
100% fat loss always. And the reason is that is, and I'm sure you've talked to your audience about this, is like, as I alluded to, is like, we need to, first of all, if you're in a position, invariably someone's going to be coming in probably with more body fat than they'd like to have, especially if they're saying they want to get leaner, right? But they also want to get bigger. Of course, I get it. We all want that. But it is saying, well, look, we also want your body to be in the healthiest position possible. And when you're leaner, you're going to be more insulin sensitive, which means you're going to be able to utilize carbohydrates more effectively. So it's always going to benefit us. I'm just going to generalize and say always. I'm sure there's outliers here, but in my mind, at least, and from what I understand of the science, is it's always going to make more sense to help someone get leaner first, as lean as possible, so that they're more insulin sensitive, right? Because also through that process, they're going to improve their eating habits, right? Invariably, they're going to have to eat better quality food. They're going to learn how to experience hunger. They're going to have to learn how to eat enough protein, right? And then beyond that is saying, okay, once we establish enough level of leanness, and one of the nuances that I've experienced within that is oftentimes guys get to the point where they're like, you know what, I'm actually lean enough. What I thought I wanted to be is far too much sacrifice for what I'm willing to give up, to the point where they're like, you know what, I thought I wanted to be sub this elusive, like sub 10%, I want to have 6-pack abs, like, maybe they can, maybe they can't. Sometimes that's just genetic. Sometimes they're coming in at 30%, and the chances of them getting to 10 is just the pipe dream. Forget about it. So I think it's about us being matter of fact with them there, of what's even reasonable versus what they see in social media. But then the other thing is just acknowledging, hey, there's always trade-offs, right? And it's saying, look, what are your priorities? What are your values? And if they're like, I value my time, I value my family, I value, my contributing to my community, all of those types of things. And then they realize that they need to spend the majority of their time in the gym, prepping food, going to bed at 8 p.m. so that they can get up at 4 a.m. and go for a walk, then go train, and they're missing out time with their kids. If those truly are their values, pretty quickly, they're going to find that there's a discrepancy, and they're going to say, you know what, this is just, the juice is not worth the squeeze, which is totally cool. And those are always beautiful.
Another aha moment.
Beautiful ahas. At which point then we can say, okay, by that same token is we can say, let's start building lean muscle tissue.
On the flip side of that same coin, though, I feel like sometimes you get guys lean enough and they go, I don't need to build any more muscle. Like, look how jacked I am, because you can actually see it now.
Yeah, because I can see my muscles. I actually feel a lot more jacked, and I'm actually pretty good right where I am, especially when they understand what's involved in the mass gain phase, which is considerable, especially for guys like us that are getting a little bit older, especially if it's a guy that doesn't really have any formal strength training experience, right? Yeah, I was talking to you.
You see one gray hair in my beard, and
That's
suddenly
right.
I'm getting older. Wow. Okay. I can do 40 push-ups in 2 minutes, Ben. Just so you know.
I'm gonna right after this podcast, I'm going out into the gym. I'm gonna beat that. That seems like that's not very good.
What?
Really?
Bro, I'm really strong. I'm just
40. You just made that up. It's not very good. I'm calling you out. Okay, so
did a reel the other day, not to change the subject, but on the like the insecure trainer.
Yeah.
Just someone who's always like, what did you say to me?
Always offended, always defensive.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Nice.
Anyways, sorry.
That's okay. So, the other side is like, hey man, if we're trying to build muscle, like it is a long, drawn out, arduous process of you making sure you're eating enough, consistently enough. And that's where it's like, just feeling like, I have to eat more food, and I have to train more, and I have to eat more of the right food, and not leverage those calories as alcohol and sweets, which it's so much easier to do when you have a bigger calorie window, right? And all of these things to say, it's like, you know what, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. But that's for you to decide as the client. Now you have the tools to apply.
Totally. I love that. Like having those aha moments of like, what do I actually want versus like, what do I think I want because I saw it on social media one time. Ben, I could talk to you for another like hour and a half about this stuff because it's so interesting and you're so good at what you do. But I think one of like the key things that I'd like to hone in on like the last couple of minutes here is just maintenance. I think maintenance is the least sexy thing in fitness, but also like one of the most important. And if you can master maintenance, you can keep your results for the rest of your life and not stress about them. And then really just like, because I feel like one thing I heard one time from Martin Burkhan, the guy who like kind of like pioneered the 16-8 intermittent fasting, like doing that back in the day. But he said like the best thing about being in shape is it's a time saver. He's like, it's not like this great thing where everyone's always like, oh my gosh, you must be so strong. And like, like getting all these compliments. He's like, it's like, it's a huge time saver. So like, it keeps me from having those mental thoughts of like, oh, like you said you were going to get in shape last year and you said this January and we're going to diet starts on Monday. And it keeps you from having to like spend all the time and effort to like learn the meal prepping and the workout skills, it's a new skill, right? Yeah. So you don't go pick up a golf club and think, oh, I'm going to kill it at this. But somehow we go to the gym one time and we're like, why aren't I good at bench press?
Right.
Bitch, because you haven't done it before.
Right.
So like, can you talk us through a little bit of like some ideas or best practices for maintenance, including like how to wrap your mind around it, how to be okay with it?
Yeah, that was very well said, by the way. And we believe that your health determines your freedom. And we say this all the time with our clients, but it truly is, the case in terms of saying like, I've been dealing with a disc herniation for the last couple months, right? And it's like, you take for granted the second you can't move, you're like, all I want to do is move. Right. And I can only imagine how awful it feels when, I talk to clients all the time. They're like, I just feel so uncomfortable in my skin. I don't even want to leave the house. I don't want to be social, like any of this stuff. And so that's where it's like, hey, that's why it's so valuable to work towards your health on a consistent basis. But with respect to maintenance, I think the best way that we can approach this and the way that we leverage this with our clients is basically to say, look, the only way we can truly identify where this maintenance level, and to be clear about like what calorie maintenance is, it's basically this range of calories whereby we're not gaining weight, but we're also not losing weight. Right? We're just chilling right where we are. If we're consistently eating, around 2,500 calories and nothing's moving for an extended period of time, then in all likelihood, that's maintenance. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to eat 2,500 calories every single day, but maybe we're eating, 2,000 calories multiple days per week, and then we're eating 3,000 calories the other 4 days per week, right? But the net The average is around 2,500 calories. That's an easy way to kind of think about that maintenance range. Now, the best way to find out what that maintenance is to actually track your calories, right? So that you understand what your average intake looks like. And I would go so far as to track for 3 or 4 weeks consistently every morsel of food that you consume, and be honest with yourself and pay attention to what's happening, right? So invariably what happens is you start tracking your food and all of a sudden scale weight starts to go down, because you're making better decisions, right? You're going to be a lot less likely to drink that extra beer, have that extra handful of dark chocolate covered almonds, which are fantastic. You're going to be a lot less likely to, do all of the things that you normally do.
I think a lot of times it comes down to me. I'm like, I don't want to go measure this. I'm not going to eat it.
I think that's fair too, 100%. Or like, I could go out and eat, but then it's going to be impossible to measure. So I'll
figure out how much are in a fish taco.
I'll make my own tacos at home, right? Which I can measure everything. So, that's relevant, but that's also a great observational tool to say, hey, if I'm tracking consistently and I'm eating 2,000 calories and I'm seeing that scale weight's going down, okay, well, I'm not in maintenance, I'm in a deficit, right? That's beautiful to know as well. Now I can start eating more. And what I would suggest is, once you have a baseline level of information, to say, hey, I've tracked for the last 4 weeks. And based on the past 4 weeks, I've been averaging, you just average the 4 weeks out as to, each week, what the average is, take all 4 weeks, average those and say, what's your average? What's happened with weight? And then you can start to work in the appropriate direction to say, okay, I ate 2,500 calories on average. My weight has stayed predominantly stable. That is now my maintenance. And then we can have all kinds of fun with that, because then we can say, cool, this is like my just chill zone. Whether I want to eat 3,000 calories multiple days, maybe on my training days, or maybe I want my weekend to be 3,500 calories on 2 days. And then I want, my weekdays to just be whatever the difference would be, 2,200 calories every single day. You have the freedom to play around with that without feeling like you need to be overly restrictive, because at the end of the day, and you can build it out with whatever foods you want. This is where flexibility and freedom come into play, the autonomy, and where you're empowered to make your own decisions. So I would strongly encourage people, take the time and give themselves permission to just track, create awareness around what it is that they're consuming. And then by virtue of doing that, then they can make strategic decisions around, okay, now that I know where my maintenance is, I'm going to go ahead and drop my calories by 20% and drop down, to whatever that is, 2,100 calories, and see what happens for a strategic period of time, right? Or I'm going to slowly start to increase my calories and see what happens.
Awesome. I think a big takeaway there is that tracking is a tool. It is not a lifestyle. You don't need to track every single food you eat for the rest of your life at all. But tracking for 3 weeks, or somewhere about thereabouts, is going to give you a lot of information that you previously didn't have. And the word that you keep using, Ben, that I love is it's fun. You can start having fun with this by being like, hey, what happens if I eat 2,500 calories of Twinkies? I don't suggest doing that, but if that's an experiment you want to run, great. I love to think about things in terms of how do I, if I am having a little bit more food, what do I need to do in order to balance it out for the week? So a lot of times a 24-hour fast will come in for us. I think that's a great tool. I also like to be able to start feeling it out with my body and kind of having a little bit more feedback from being more insulin sensitive and having my body respond and being do a big day yesterday. You're pretty full. You don't need as much today. Yeah. And once you start being attuned to that, because your body's just a little bit more able to communicate with you, you're not having so much interference from visceral fat signals, bacteria from your gut signals, different things like that. You start to have this level of understanding of your body, which I think is so beneficial and can only come from being in a position where you can take a breath. Because you're constantly, like you said, white knuckling it all the time. You're never going to be able to understand what your body's actually needs, is craving, when it's not actually hungry and when it's thirsty, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's another thing that we talk about, is just learning how to be your own best nutrition detective, right? At the end of the day is I think it's great when people go through all of the different diets and they do keto and they do, paleo and they do carnivore and they do the intermittent fasting and all of these types of things, because they're all really great learning opportunities to the point where people already kind of know what works well, what doesn't work, how they feel. You just give people the opportunity to start to acknowledge those things. And so it's essential, right? If you're going to be successful long term, it's just part of who you need to become. Is the type of person that cares enough about their nutrition to be able to make informed decisions, right? That are going to be in line with what they actually want, and not feel like they're relegated to some ridiculous dieting methodology, and can never have any of the things again that they want to include in their lifestyle, or that their family includes, or whatever.
You heard it here first. If you want that transformation for life, it has to be identity shift. It cannot be a flash in the pan lifestyle fad diet, because you will never be successful long-term. Ben, thank you so much for coming, dropping wisdom. Just hearing you talk about maintenance, gets me excited, because I feel like this is a piece that a lot of people aren't hearing or aren't seeing a lot from fitness influencers. So really appreciate you just sharing the wealth of your knowledge in this. So fun to talk to you all the time. Any last words of wisdom, advice, anything you wanted to get off your chest? See any secrets?
No, man, I think this has been fantastic. I just appreciate the opportunity to voice our mission and share the love. And I'm just it's a pleasure connecting with you and sharing with your audience, and keep up the good work, man. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, brother. And where can people go to connect with you if they're loving your vibe, want to grab some of the BSL essentials?
Yeah, so we are at bslnutrition.com. We have let's see, what do we have? We are at social at BSL Nutrition on all social media platforms. And we have a podcast called The Smart Nutrition Made Simple Show on all of your typical podcast platforms. So hit us up. We have a private community in Facebook called the Smart Nutrition Made Simple Community. Come jump in, request access. We'll let you right in. And it's just great conversations around nutrition and style, and a community that you're a part of, and we'd love to have you. So hit me up.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Last question before we let you go. What does BSL stand for?
Body Systems Labs.
Love it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
I was wondering that the other day. Someone was like, what does that mean?
You didn't know?
Like, I didn't know.
Oh yeah. So let me just really quick. So I had a company before called Body Systems Healing and Performance. Then you're familiar with our all-in-one complete essential supplement. Now I teamed up with a business partner, and we started Body Systems Labs, right? And then Body Systems Labs started to branch off into more nutrition coaching, online coaching. So we made it BSL Nutrition.
Got it. Cool. Bro, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to catch up next time.
Take care, brother. Talk soon.